I am doing this live from my new office, home office, which is on the third floor of our log cabin. So lots of wood, which I'm very excited about. And it's quiet in my house, which is even better. As many of you know, I'm an introvert, so I appreciate quiet. And I get to spend some time with you this morning. So we have a pretty exciting topic, the connection between well-being and wealth. Now, if you missed this live, of course, you can watch it later, and this will be turned into a newsletter and a blog on our website. So there's lots of different ways to consume this information, and it's just the start. I want to start to create this conversation around health being directly tied to wealth. There are many, many people that get that, but there are many, many people that don't or don't know how to operationalize it. So this is a good way to have that conversation. If you have any questions for me, please put them in the chat. My colleague, Dr. Marissa Rescott, will be commenting and helping me during the live, just especially on LinkedIn, to answer any questions that you have. But again, the topic is the connection between well-being and wealth. And good thing I am live now, so good to go. I'm going to shut down my phone. And I would suggest all of you do the same. So those little devices of ours can be super distracting. And if you can, shut down or eliminate all the other windows that you have going on right now and pay attention to this. We have 30 minutes together, and I am looking forward to diving into some of the research and things I've found on health being tied to well-being, or well-being tied to wealth. And it's not going to cover everything, but it will cover a lot, and would love to have a discussion with you. So we will get started in just a couple minutes. Feel free to put any of the questions you have in the chat. I do have a couple of announcements. So something very exciting. I'm flying to Columbus tomorrow to speak at the Veteran ERG Summit, Employee Resource Group Summit at the National Veteran Museum in Columbus, Ohio. A good friend of mine, General Michael Ferreter, runs that museum, and I'm excited to meet some of the amazing organizations that are going to be representing there and giving them my competitive advantage talk, as well as being on a panel about how to be, what resources are available for veterans within organizations. So that's very exciting. The other thing that's happening is on October 5th will be my first webinar that I'll be giving on how to recharge your health and retain your people. So that's a big thing that comes up for people that I get to speak, leaders I get to speak to. How do you recharge your own health and retain, at the same time, retain your people? You can do it. So that's what the webinar will be on. So save the date for October 5th. It'll be at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So that's 10 Pacific Standard Time, and that is 1 Eastern Time. So save the date. I will have a link to sign up for that webinar later today, and we will be sharing it. Some of you I'll be reaching out individually, but would love you to attend it. It'll be chocked full of good information. We'll be offering some free gifts for you and your people, so you're not going to want to miss it. All right, it is 9:01 my time. What time is it for you? And if you're listening in, where are you listening in from? I would love to know. So I'm in a small town called Durango, Colorado. I moved here 2 years ago with my family from San Diego, a larger town, larger city, and living in the mountains, living in a log cabin in the mountains, and raising a family was a dream of ours. And we made it come true, and it's been wonderful and also hard, right? There's running a business and raising a family and moving and all the things. Definitely isn't easy. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but it's been very life-giving as well. So, okay, without further ado, let's get this party started. Now, for those of you that are coming on and listening now, we are talking about today, this is Your Health is Your Business. This is a LinkedIn Live show that I do every other week with myself, with me and myself, or with a team member or a guest I bring on. But it's usually chock full of evidence as well as experience type information. This is the connection between wellness and well-being and wealth. And so I'm going to be reading some of the amazing research I've read about this topic. And yeah, we do this to inform fellow business owners and leaders what's possible with their well-being, because we know that a lot of times well-being is focused on, it's the people. Like we want to giving their people an advantage, giving them EAP programs that work, or which is employee assistance programs, or usually when it comes to well-being, it's the focus is on employees versus the leaders themselves. They both matter, but oftentimes the C-suite can be left behind, or because they're used to taking care of everyone else, and not focusing on themselves. Our role as a business with Movement RX is to help the leader to maintain and improve and strengthen their well-being. And I'm actually going to go into some of those definitions in a little bit. So who am I? My name is Teresa Larson. I am a doctor of physical therapy. I'm a business owner. I am the founder of Movement RX. So that company, you can just type it in, movement-rx.com. You can see it on LinkedIn as well. We do put out a lot of video content on different ways to improve your well-being in the 5 key health and well-being categories, which is sleep, food, mindset training in the form of meditation and mindfulness, movement, and social connection. And what you're paying attention to is part of social connection. What are you paying attention to on a daily basis? So I am the founder of Movement RX, and our job is to give leaders and their people the knowledge and skills to live a lifetime of physical and emotional freedom. So I did run PT clinics in San Diego, yet that was not a passion of mine at all. And most people that worked for me felt the same. And now we get to go around the country and present on proactive aspects of wellness and well-being, and meet people where they're at and offer programs that make sense, and meet them where they're at, right? Because going into a PT clinic, usually when people go to see a doctor, a PT, or anyone, it's when they're pretty bad off. And so getting on the proactive side of health and well-being is where our company focuses. And even if you are struggling with an injury, a chronic injury, which usually means more than 3 months, we can help you with that, right? There are proactive things that you can do. So, all right, gave you some of the announcements. Now, let's get this topic started, because we only have 30 minutes together, and we'll now 25. So if you're just coming on, this topic is on the connection between well-being and wealth. So many of you know that my father was a Catholic priest, a second vocation Catholic priest. And the reason why he could be that was because he was a widower. My mother passed when I was 10. One of his mentors was a Catholic priest. He was able to go into the priesthood as a widower and loved it. Like, it was a vocation for him. And it also, running the church was like running a business too, which he understood. But he was able to meet people where they were at as a married man, as someone who had children, who was in the service, he was also an Army veteran. He was able to actually meet people where they were at truly, and get the struggles that they were having in their marriage or their life and whatnot. Now, he was used to be a commodity broker and make really good money, right? But that money just didn't necessarily buy him happiness. But it was able to help him pay off all my mother's medical bills and pay for our private schools that he wanted to send us to, even though we all did work study anyway, which I'm glad we did, right? He taught us how to fish versus giving us the fish. But when he became a Catholic priest, that was when I saw him the most happy. Now, of course, he always, my mom was always such a big part of his life. And even as a priest, he would still wear his wedding ring because he was still married to her, even though she passed. It was super special. Yet that was the time I saw him the most happiest, especially after my mother passed, is serving other people. And the thing is, he had to take an oath of simple poverty. So he didn't have much, yet he was the happiest and did a lot for people. And to this day, on my fan page on Facebook, if you want to call it that, Dr. Teresa Larson, DPT, I still get parishioners of his reaching out to me because he made that much of an impact. And he had a flip phone, no social media accounts, had a hard time running Skype, right? Like, it's maybe a lot of our parents experience that, but he had a huge impact. Now, the interesting thing was, in the town that he lived, there was a very wealthy side, and a very impoverished side. And then there was a little bit in between. And I think that's most towns in America, right? You got the wealthy, the impoverished, and then in between. Now, guess who gave the most to the church? Was it the extremely wealthy? Was it the impoverished, or a little bit in between? You can answer that in the chat if you want, and I will answer it for you here. It was the impoverished and a little bit in between. He had the hardest time getting people to give who were extremely wealthy, who had multiple homes, more than they could ever want. And guess what? Some of those parishioners who had owned businesses, built huge businesses, didn't last beyond retirement up to 5 years. So anyway, point is as his daughter, I saw this when I would go visit him. Like, people that had so little would still give, yet the people that had so much didn't give a lot. So that's not everyone, but that was just something I witnessed. So that's, one of the things I wanted to bring up today as the start of this discussion. Because the truth is, money does not buy you happiness, but it can give you freedom. And when I talk about wealth, it's not necessarily in relation to money wholly. And if you're coming on, right now we're discussing the connection between well-being and wealth. So let me go over a couple definitions. All right. So well-being, that's something, difference between well-being and wellness. What is it? So well-being is a set of habits and behaviors. Okay. People's overall happiness, the satisfaction you have at work, whether you feel purpose in your work, right? Those are all aspects of well-being, but it's set of habits and behaviors. So the way you are versus wellness is literally a state of mind, right? It may be how you perceive yourself. I have wellness. I am well. Versus well-being is the habit and behaviors. Okay, definition of wealth is abundance of valuable possessions or money, plentiful supplies of a particular resource. Now, a resource is, right, a stock or supply of money, materials, staff, or other assets that can be drawn on by a person or organization in order to function effectively. It's an action or strategy that may be adopted in adverse circumstances. So your wealth, you can determine what is part of your wealth. And my suggestion with this is think of it like a portfolio you're investing in, right? So there is the money aspect of wealth and how much you have, but there's also family and where you live, your surroundings, and how healthy you are, right? All of those, you decide what goes into your wealth category. What are your resources? How do you define wealth outside of just money that you have? And that's important. So think of it the way you can think of it, especially if money is stressful for you. Diversify the way you look at it. Pull from all different categories that make you happy in your life, your family, your health. Look at the things that you have versus don't have, and let that also define your wealth. All right. So what I want to go into now, wealth can, and like I mentioned, wealth can look different for all of us. And yes, again, money is a part of it, but it's a small part of it. There are other aspects of wealth that that are in your life, and you just have to look up and look around to see it. So let's go into some main points I want to discuss today about the connection between well-being and wealth. So here's one. When is it ever enough? So there's this. So there's a quote by Lao Tzu. Obviously, Lao Tzu has the quote to your thoughts become your words become your actions. This is something I share in my competitive advantage trainings. But this is another quote that I read about by him, and I think it's and I know it's very true. He who knows he has enough is rich. Rich is very similar to wealth, right? Rich means plentiful, abundant, having a great deal of money or assets, wealthy. And so again, he who knows he has enough is rich. How many of you know someone who always has to have the next best little technology or next best thing, or always has to have more, right? I fall into that category. Oh, if I just get this, new color of a rug, or just this much more money, or, this way, like maybe someday I'll be happier because I have these things, right? Versus just accepting when you know you have enough, and are okay with having enough, like that's when you're rich. So let's dive into the psychology of well-being and its relation to wealth. And I pulled this from the Center of Advancement of Well-being at George Mason University. All right. So let's look at subjective well-being. So subjective well-being is a psychological construct concerned not with what people have or what happens to them, but with how they think about and feel about what they have and what happens to them. So think about that. The study of subjective well-being makes a distinction between the objective conditions of someone's life and that person's subjective evaluations of and feelings of his or her life. So how you feel about your well-being and your life matters more than actually what's going on. Well, how you perceive what's actually going on. Plenty of relatively rich, healthy people are miserable. And plenty of relatively poor, unhealthy people live lives of meaning and joy. Average subjective well-being is greater in some relatively poor countries than in some relatively rich countries. In addition, as rich nations have become richer over the past several decades, as measured by per capita gross domestic product, the average subjective well-being of their citizens in general has not increased. So there's a parallel between making more, right? You making more doesn't mean your well-being is going to be better. But nonetheless, money does matter for nations and for individuals and for companies. Most research on the relationship between financial status and subjective well-being and life satisfaction suggests that the relationship is strong, up to the point where a society or an individual is meeting basic needs such as food, shelter, clean water, electricity, and basic health and medical care. Basic needs. Now, I know a lot of people aren't even getting their basic needs. As you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when you look at physiological stability, some people aren't getting that. Some people's homes aren't stable, but they expect themselves to reach esteem, right, and enlightenment, but they don't have the basic needs met. So that is a foundation for feeling a sense of well-being. So after these needs are met, the relationship between wealth and subjective well-being, life satisfaction remains. But additional increases in wealth typically result in smaller increases in subjective well-being and life satisfaction. Emotional well-being refers to, let's go into emotional well-being. So there's emotional and physical, right? And that's still a part of subjective well-being. It's a component of it. So emotional well-being refers to the frequency and intensity of our experiences of pleasant emotions, such as joy and affection, and negative emotions, such as stress, sadness, and anger. Life evaluation or life satisfaction refers to what we think about the quality of our lives when we are asked to think about it. So in this note, we're talking about emotional well-being and then life satisfaction. A survey of 1,000 Americans found that emotional well-being and life satisfaction have different predictors. Income is a strong predictor of life evaluation satisfaction, but health, caregiving, and loneliness were stronger predictors of emotional well-being or impacting emotional well-being. Life satisfaction continues to rise as income increases, but the relationship between increased income and emotional well-being levels off at around $75,000. Now, that's in 2010 dollars, so that's more now, but think about it. After making, let's just say it's $100,000 now, right? Beyond that, right, that's not a predictor of emotional well-being, right? Life satisfaction may increase with income increase, but not necessarily emotional well-being. That's interesting. In another article in the Morning Star, it highlighted the importance of confidence. So this is another component of this, right? When is it enough? In another article in the Morning Star, it highlighted the importance of confidence in one's financial stability over the income itself. So there was a story told in this article about the witch on Wall Street. Her name was Hetty Greens. Does anyone know who Hetty Green's was? She wore the same black dress every single day, and when it wore out, she'd buy another one. She made, in today's dollars, billions. All right, yet she was not a happy person at all. Not happy, and did not give back at all. Now, this story, you can just look her up. Anyway, the story kind of illustrates this important fact. Financial well-being is not only about numbers. It's also about the stories we tell ourselves because of those numbers. In other words, confidence appears to be more important to financial well-being than income. So your confidence in your ability to make an income, grow your business, right, is more important than the income itself. In short, when it comes to emotional side of financial health, income matters, but the beliefs we hold about money and our own ability to manage it matter more. A person can have a high income, but if their financial mindset is weak, they may still have a very low quality of life with respect to their money. Now, let's look at companies, ultimately, tying it back to companies. So the leader's beliefs from the above will dictate how a company is operated. So if you think if a company leader has a growth mindset and has knows that their confidence in their ability to grow and generate revenue for their company, they have a high confidence in that versus a low confidence, right? They're going to be better off emotionally and physically, right? And they're going to run their company that way. So a company taking on these, like the being well, also what matters most is how the leadership's perspective on this. So, and the way they live their life. So the way they personally take on money and see money and finances also matters to how they take on that with their company. So here's a Deloitte study showed that 87% of executives and managers said improving workplace well-being could give their companies a competitive advantage, but only 35% had a strategy to prioritize it. Now, of those 35%, how are they implementing that strategy? I'm curious of that. Then there was a study at Oxford University using Indeed.com and employee reviews that said companies with higher well-being scores are more profitable, have higher valuations, and outperform the stock market. Those leaders know the balance of well-being and their growth as a company. So here's the thing: people's well-being, so performance, and their people can go hand in hand. They don't have to be separate. Taking care of your people can happen at the same time as performance. Unfortunately, when performance issues pop up, that's when leaders will double down. There'll be more work for their people, and well-being, things that go into their well-being, costs may be cut. And that's unfortunate. Now, there's an organization, so a friend of mine who's a naval veteran here in this small town used to work for one of the largest coffee companies, Starbucks. And he was explaining to me that one of the reasons why Starbucks has done so well, is because they do focus on performance and their people. They don't cut out opportunities to help their people grow. Now think about that in your own business. So when you look at well-being, so the leader's individual experiences and beliefs around money, confidence around money, and even beliefs in their own ability to be well, right? What stories are coming up for them in terms of their well-being? Like, oh, I have this genetic heart issue. Oh, I have this pain. I'm old. Like, what stories are getting in the way of them being well? What is their confidence level in money? Like, that's maybe not something you as an employee will know, but as a leader listening in, what is it? Because know that will impact how you grow your company, right? When things get stressful, is that when you're going to let go of self-care? That typically does happen. That's a very common behavior. But what if you were to stay well, keep your well-being in check, and know that just because you're getting older doesn't mean you should be in pain or less active, or maybe things are a little bit more creaky, but it means you need to add more movement to your day. Or what's your confidence in your ability to grow your company and your people? Like, really take a look at that and how that's impacting the way you serve your clients as well as the way you lead your people. So maybe there are some stories there that you need to let go of. I get it. I've been there myself with my own small company, Movement RX. So I'll leave you with this before I get to any questions. So one of the questions I get a lot from leaders, and I know Chris O'Brien added this in the chat, was how do I balance the responsibilities of being a leader and self-care? Right? Because I know that there's a lot of responsibilities that go into running a company. Maybe you have a family. There's a lot of other things in life throws at you. And then, oh, by the way, there's self-care, which isn't a nice to have, it's a need to have, but oftentimes becomes a nice to have because we let it go. And that does impact how we see money, right? And the need for more, like think about the drive for more, what that does to your well-being. When is it ever going to be enough? The happiest people I know aren't the wealthiest. I do know some very happy, wealthy people too. I consider myself wealthy in a lot of different categories. So remember, well-being, right? And the connection between well-being and wealth, they are connected. What is your confidence level in your ability to stay well, but also run a company and be financially secure, financially stable? What is your confidence level in your ability to let go of the stories of what your injury or your health means about you now and do things to improve it? What is your confidence level in your ability to grow a company, right? Versus, and be okay with what's enough for you. And can you make sure you prioritize your people and your performance? Because what is the end game? Is there an end game? I don't think so. And if you think there is, there's not. Maybe you want to sell your company, sure, but what's it going to cost you on the way to doing that? Life is right now and enjoying it right now, and the journey of it and the journey of growing it. Like, this is where it's at. So be well, being happy, having confidence in your ability to grow, even if it might be slow, maybe it's fast. Don't compromise your well-being for the need for more. I'll leave you with this. So the question I get is about how to balance your well-being, especially with all the responsibilities you have as a leader. And I get it. Like, when you're talking about trying to retain your people and handle the stressors that you're up against every day between family and work, like, how do you fit in self-care? It seems manageable and sustainable. It's another thing, is sustainable. A lot of programs out there are not sustainable. That's why on October 5th, I'm doing this webinar on how to recharge your health as a leader and business owner and retain your people. So in this, you're going to get a lifestyle RX and another gift from me that I want to give you and your organization, right? And it's going to highlight some main things that will help you then and there on your own health and well-being and your people's. And it's not, a big lift at all for you, but it'll be something that we'll enjoy. And I'll provide the link later today, and we'll have it in the newsletter when I send it out early next week. Now, I'll leave you with this story, and then I will go to questions. So when I first started doing seminars for organizations, my colleague and I, John McCaskill, was right at the last year of the pandemic. We were doing virtual seminars, and we had a number of organizations interested in our virtual seminar. And the virtual seminar was a really low cost. At the time, we thought it was pretty standard, but it was a really low cost. And that cost was $1,000 for a 2-hour seminar with both of us. So, and that's a really low cost, right? A really low ask for investment from an organization. And we had an organization that was worth 11 figures, and then one that was worth 7 figures wanted to work with us. And we provided all the data, the information, the marketing materials, all the things that they needed to make it a successful event. And who do you think balked at the price and the time commitment based on the company culture and just the way the leaders ran the company? Who do you think balked at it? So it was actually the bigger figure company, the 11-figure company. It was a tech company. It's such a hard time with taking the 2 hours out. They mentioned to us that the culture, it was fast and furious, and leaders didn't like to stop and slow down and invested in any kind of well-being. Really, they didn't do it. How sad is that? The company, a 7-figure company, even lower figure companies have bought seminars from us for a lot more money because they know the importance, or they believe that the importance of well-being is very important to their growth. So they're willing to invest in it. Now, of course, the 11-figure company, there's a lot of turnover. People aren't happy. People are stressed. That was you could actually taste the stress when on these calls with these people. That's sad. And I'm pretty aware of people's emotions and what's going on when I'm even on a video, right? And especially when I'm in person, but you could taste the stress. Yet the money was there, but what do you think about the longevity of those people, or the happiness on a daily basis of those people? When is it ever enough? All right, so I'll leave you with that. I look forward to doing this webinar on October 5th. We will do another live before then, but this webinar is a pretty special event, right? It's not going to be live on all the platforms. It's going to be something you sign up for. So I'll have a link to sign up, right? We're going to limit it to 50 people for this first one. I would love to see you there. October 5th at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 Eastern Time. And if you're in Australia or Europe, I don't know what time it is. We'll figure it out. But do I have any questions? Let's see. I'm going to go to pick up my phone now and see if there's any questions on LinkedIn. I know Marissa, you got this, but let's see. Hope you all enjoyed this topic. All right. We got some people from Pennsylvania. Good to go. I love it. Let's see. All right. Hopefully, Chris, I answered your question. And I would love to know your thoughts on your perceptions of wealth and well-being. Right? I shared some research today and some information, but it's a topic that we could spend hours on. Yet, you have to, I think the big takeaways are you need to determine what wealth means in your life. And I would suggest is a challenge to diversify your look on your wealth, not only as your income, right, but your confidence in your ability to make money, the love that you have in your family, your family's health, right, where you live, what friends you have, all of those things can be part of your wealth portfolio, if you will. My dad was definitely an economist, so I think of this sometimes in terms of investments, which it is. But then well-being, like what's your confidence in your own well-being, your ability to be healthy despite genetics, right? What are your beliefs about your well-being, right? So your beliefs matter. And one of the things that we do with our trainings with organizations is we try to match your perception with your reality too. So it can help you better get to where you want to go. So we all have health and well-being goals, maybe and also income goals, but we got to like really dive into where you're at right now to help you pave a path to get where you need to go. The same thing if you look at a high level of just having a dream. All right, you want to travel the world. Well, where are you at with that right now? What are your finances? What are your beliefs about it? Where do you want to go? Like really assessing where you're at is really an important thing. So I hope that the discussion was fruitful for you. Know that the connection between well-being and wealth is there. There is absolutely a connection. But when you think of wealth, when is it enough for you? Right? How much is enough? And when you know that, and when you feel, when you accept enough, right, that's when you'll be rich. And then the other thing on the well-being side, that well-being is a part of your wealth. Okay? So maintaining your well-being habits in sleep, food, mindset, movement, social support, social connection, those are all part of your wealth. They help you show up. They help you show up and work and be more present to your people. And if you do practice these 5 components of well-being, you'll be able to actually better accept and be okay with enough. And you'll be the happiest person. And you can choose to be happy, right? But look at the research, look at where you're at, and see, how your well-being, those 5 components of well-being, those 5 key behaviors of well-being are: sleep, food, movement, mindset training, social connection. Where are you at with those? What is your confidence in your ability to make an income? How are those tied together for you? There's some homework for you. And then if you are a leader of a company, think how that impacts the growth of your company and how you react or respond each day to your people and the revenue each year that you make. All right. With that, I will look at the comments if there's any questions after this. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you very soon. Remember, mark your calendar for October 5th, webinar, something you signed up for. But guess what? It's going to be a meeting format, so I get to see you. We can talk together versus it just being a name. So I look forward to it. See you soon.